Hey everybody, my name is Chris Pua and I am a third year student here at the University of San Diego, studying political science and minoring in leadership studies. Some things I'm involved with on campus are I'm on the e-board, Director of Communications for Olay Ambassadors. I'm also a tour guide and involved in men's club volleyball and intramural sports. We're so excited to have you here with us today for another student session to discuss the Southwestern section that live here at the University of San Diego. So without further ado, I'd love for all of our featured students to introduce themselves, and then we can answer some important questions you may have about being from another place but still living at USD. So without further ado, let's have Emily start it off.
Yeah, I can get us started. So I'm Emily Chua. I'm a second year here at USD. I'm an out-of-state student, obviously from the Southwest region, from Tucson, Arizona. I'm majoring in psychology with a double minor in business administration and law and ethics. I'm also involved in a handful of things on campus, including Torero ambassadors, which is why I'm here today, Torero tour guides, undergraduate research. I'm a TA, and a handful of clubs dealing with psychology and community service and things like that. And I'm super excited to answer some questions.
All right, so I'm Daniela Clark. I'm also out of state. I'm a second year. I'm originally from Lakewood, Colorado, and I'm majoring in international relations with double minors in business admin and analytics. I'm also involved with Torero ambassadors as well as the honors club on campus and the honors program.
Sweet. As you guys can tell, we have some superstar students here for you guys today. So first question is, did you know from the start that you wanted to go to an out of school state? And Daniela, you could start us off with this one.
I actually did know that I wanted to go to school out of state. I came from a relatively small high school, and I just knew that I wanted to go out of state, get away from some of the people I'd known for my whole life, and I just really wanted to get out there and explore more what the world had to offer.
I think for me, I'd say probably similar experience. I live like 20 minutes away from a big state school where like 80% of the kids I went to high school with go to. So I just kind of wanted to kind of like get a new social circle, have new experiences, everything like that. And then obviously, I mean, second to that is like it's kind of hard to turn down. Like being from Arizona, San Diego itself is a short drive away, and California is just amazing. So that was a good option for me.
Yeah, so when you got accepted into USD, did you visit before you got committed or before you committed? And if you did, like, what was your experience like on campus? Emily, you could start this one.
Yeah, I'll get us started on this one. So for me, I visited campus before it was accepted. I was pretty much down to like three schools at the time that I visited, and I knew it was already kind of like leaning towards USD. But visiting campus, I kind of had in my head, I was like, okay, I'm like gonna commit to here if I get in, and if nothing like horrible goes wrong on the tour, pretty much. But you know, coming and seeing campus was really helpful, and if I could go back and do it again, I would, because you really, I mean, this is the same thing for all college tours. You really just get a good feel for the campus and how students interact, and seeing how students walk around campus and how friendly everyone is, was also really cool. And then, I mean, you're learning things that maybe you can't find online. Like with COVID, that has changed a little bit, and there's a lot of more information online that's super accessible. But you know, seeing dorms, getting to know tour guides, running into random students and having conversations with them was, I think, one of the most helpful things from my tour, and just kind of even further cemented the decision that I had already made for myself.
Daniela, did you visit USD before you committed?
I actually didn't visit USD before I committed. I'd been to San Diego and I'd kind of glimpsed the campus, but I'd actually did a tour of Oregon and like Northern California schools. And then when it came down to it, everything I heard about USD matched what I wanted. So even though I'd never been, the amount of information they put out once I'd been accepted really just drew me in.
Sweet. So this next one I'm actually going to direct at you first, Daniela, just from what I heard. But I know you literally just said like you didn't visit, but everything you heard about USD is ultimately why you chose to go to USD. But was there anything else that made you choose USD like after the fact?
Um, After the fact, I loved once we got accepted, they'd send us these videos. Um, they had been filmed on campus where they interviewed actual students on campus and they talked about the clubs and organizations, their work being a change maker campus. And it everything that I heard not only made me was something I wanted to experience in school, but also reflected a place that I knew I could build myself or who I wanted to be for the future. So yeah.
Sweet. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, so I always like to say kind of like boiled down for me to like three main things. And number one being living in San Diego, but I always like to say like just full disclosure, that's like a cop-out answer just because San Diego is so amazing. So I'll get a little bit more down into the nitty-gritty. The two other things like small class sizes, which USD loves to hammer home, especially on our tours. I kind of knew that was going to be the academic environment that I was going to thrive in just because it's collaborative, you know your other classmates. It's really easy to make friends that way, to make group chats, and you're kind of succeeding together. And then on top of that, making really close relationships with professors. But Danielle kind of alluded to it, the changemaker aspect of USD, I think is really rare. And I think it's really special to share an academic environment with other students that are like-minded and want to pursue social change. And I always say, like, it's really special because at the end of the day, we're all here to pursue a degree, and also pursuing social change at the same time is not necessarily something that we have to do, but it's something that you find at USD majority of students want to do, which I think again is super special to share an academic environment with students like that. And again, also like Daniela said, USD had all the tools like small class size and the change maker aspect for me to go out and live the life that I imagined for myself in high school, which I'm forever grateful for, and it's turned out amazing so far. So
Heck yeah, the change making part of USC is also one of my favorite parts as well. So of course this panel is being about out of state and how it feels to come to USD. So most of these next questions are going to be more out how it feels to be from out of state. So from that, do you ever feel homesick? And if you ever do, how do you really handle that? Emily, you could answer this one first.
I think coming into college, like with the whole transition, I was very much like, I'm not going to think about it. Like, I'm just going to go and wing it, and it's going to be okay, and it's going to figure itself out. And it eventually did figure itself out, but I think I may have underestimated how everyone can get homesick. I was like, I'm going to not get homesick, and it's going to be fine. But yeah, no, totally. It did hit me. Kind of, I want to say like 2/3 through first semester freshman year, I was like, man, like being home, like having a hug from my mom would be very nice right now. But I think something that's maybe not said enough is if you have the means to go home and visit for a long weekend or something like that, go do it. If that's something that you need for your mental health, go do it. It's not something that's looked down upon. If you need that, like, kind of to hit the reset button, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But then at the same time, if you maybe haven't hit that point yet, for me, I really leaned into all the clubs and orgs at USD, and I found another sense of home here on campus, and that was something that I'll value forever. And that kind of allowed me kind of switch my mindset and focus on the family that I have here, while still missing my family at home. But you know, it helped USC really turn into like a home away from home, and that really helped my homesick situation.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I also was very homesick, especially I think about a month into school. Because the first month you come in and it's all everything's new, everything's exciting, you're meeting new people. And then I got homesick. But by the time that happened, I'd built those relationships and that family through the clubs I joined. As Emily said, you build another family here. And like I had 3 roommates my freshman year, and they became like my support system when I was homesick. Like if I was sad that I was missing my parents, the girl that was next to me, she'd come over and like give me a hug if I was stressed. And not only that, but I'd also call my parents a lot. That's a very useful tool.
Definitely want to emphasize calling your parents a lot. I know that can be tough, especially in your first few weeks of college, but never forget that. Never forget that. So, as all three of us know, San Diego is definitely the best city in the world. But how do you guys rep some hometown pride when you're here? Danielle, you can go first.
So I actually have a candle in my room that I got from Colorado that's like the smell of Colorado. So whenever I need to feel like I'm home and rep that I'm from there, I light it and like pine needles fill the room. And then I still wear my Broncos jersey when I am sad. I have it hidden in my closet. So I'll just like sit in my room and wear it. And my card, I have like my credit card is a Broncos flag. And every time I go out shopping, someone's like, "Oh, you're from Colorado? You're a Broncos fan?"
I think for me, it's on campus in little ways. Like Danielle and I are both members of out of state ambassadors, where we help students that are from out of state kind of make a transition, and also just meet other students from out of state in our region, the Southwest region. So meeting other students from one the region, but then two from my city, which I didn't think that there were many students from USD that were from my city, but there are. So just like meeting up with those students a lot was a way that I was like, oh, home, that feels so good. But then number two, also like rooting for sports teams. Like whenever the Padres, I think it's actually happening either today or tomorrow. Whenever the Padres play the Diamondbacks, I like root for the Diamondbacks, which is really concerning for my friends that are from San Diego. But you know, you have to do it. You have to rep your hometown. So also in that way.
I respect repping the hometown sports. That's loyalty right there. So I'm just gonna move on to the next question. How was your initial transition to college? And is there anything you weren't expecting about the college experience that you now know that you could spread to the people that are going to be watching this panel? Emily, you could go first on this one.
I think for me, I already kind of alluded to it earlier, but like the homesickness kind of surprised me. I didn't think that I would be the type of person to kind of be impacted by that, but I think I quickly realized that everyone has their moments where they start missing home. But as far as the college transition, it was actually I mean, I don't think there's ever a college transition that's just like smooth sailing and like everything works out, everything's perfect, and like I don't know, there's no bumps or kinks in the road. But for me, it was USD had the tools to make it as smooth as possible, and a large part of that was Alcala Bazaar, which is this massive club fair where you can just sign up for, like I always say, like a dangerous amount of things, and you get involved in all these different communities. And it just, like I said, it gets you involved, and you kind of develop this like home away from home sense. So things like that, and then small class sizes, getting to know people, access to professors, all these tools are things that USD has to make that transition easier. Scholastic assistance, RAs, tutoring, peer tutoring, everything like that makes the transition as smooth as it can be. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy all the time, but knowing the resources that are there and taking advantage of them was like the best decision I've ever made while since being here.
I would definitely agree. USD really goes the extra mile when it comes to your transition from out of state. So like I did pre-orientation as a freshman coming in. So I arrived like 5 days before actual orientation. I went camping and I automatically made like 7 friends that I knew going into orientation. That was really useful. Something that definitely took me off guard was actually a positive, was I didn't realize how quickly I would build relationships with people I just met. So like end of the first semester, I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, I've only known these people for a couple months, but they were already like so close, and we already knew each other so well. And adding on to what Emily said, our first year experience as a whole for out of state students especially is just amazing, because you're automatically with LLCs, you're automatically living with people that you're going to see every day. You automatically have a class together, you're going to share an advisor. So you have all these things that are set up so you have things in common and you can begin to build off of those.
Sweet. Yeah, I also want to emphasize just for me, it was the clubs and organizations as well. And as Emily said, the Alcala Bazaar is a great place. It happens in the first few weeks of both semesters. So if you do attend USD, I'd definitely say take advantage of that because it's going to be a great way for you to get into the USD community. So I know we talked about this a little bit, or you guys talked about this a little bit, but how did you initially meet people at USD? Did you mostly do it through like Instagram or other social media platforms, or was it all when you arrived on campus and you're like, okay, it's time to meet everyone I can? Emily or Daniela, you could answer this one first.
So for me, I didn't really take advantage of any of the social media before we got to campus. So it was once I was in San Diego that I really started to meet people. And yeah, it was through doing pre-orientation, going to the Alcala Bazaar, meeting other people in my classes, especially with the small class size. And especially with the icebreakers in some of your classes the first week, you just meet people who you're going to have things in common with and who have similar interests.
Yeah, I'd say during Ole weekend, like the amount of icebreakers that you do, like I think the amount of creative ones, like favorite form of potato that people come up with are like mind blowing, but at the same time, you run into a lot of people and it makes actually very interesting conversation. So yeah, I'd say Ole weekend, like people are like running around with like their Snapchat codes open and like you just like get a lot of different people whose names you probably will not remember until you meet them again into your Snapchat. But actually, for me, I did take advantage of the Facebook group chat for the USD class of 2023 coming in this summer before coming to campus. And based off of that group chat, a lot of people just like post like, "Hey, I'm getting a Snapchat group running. Um, Comment your Snapchat." So I ended up in like 4 different Snapchat group chats with like probably 100 people in each one, and like probably a lot of overlap of the same people in each one. And I mean, they were really chaotic group chats, but at the same time, while I didn't maybe get that much information from them because everyone else was also very lost, it made me feel more comfortable in coming to campus. I'm like, okay, at least I know like some people's names. Like I may not know names to faces, but it made me feel more comfortable in like move-in and week and Ole weekend and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, if anywhere you go, those are probably set up. I'd say that that really helps the whole transition and may ease some nerves along the way.
Yeah, definitely. My experience are definitely related to both of you, especially with the overlap of Snap group chats. It can get ridiculous sometimes, but it's definitely useful. I would say definitely useful. So you both talked about how you were both out of state ambassadors, and I'm wondering if through that is that one way that you guys were able to meet people from your area, or were there other ways that helped you find people that were like Emily? You said there were a lot of people from your city, and you're actually kind of surprised by that. So can you talk a little bit about how you're able to meet people from your area?
I think for like first and foremost, USD is kind of like it's a good sized school, but it's also on the smaller end. So I think a lot of it was I met one person from Tucson, and then I was like, oh, she met someone else. So you meet a lot of people through other people. It's a small world here. Um, but at the same time, yes, through OSA, I met a lot of people that were from Tucson, from near areas near where I'm from, and everything like that. But also at the same time, we have these things called door decks that go on all the doors of all of our dorms and apartments and everything at USD. And usually for freshmen, they have like your name and then your hometown. So literally just like walking around my dorm, I'd like look around and be like, oh my gosh, she's from like 40 minutes away from where I am. And like her door would be open and I'd be like, hey, like, have you eaten here before? Like, that's my favorite restaurant, that kind of stuff. So a lot of different ways, but also the door decks, I think is probably one of the sneakiest and like smartest ways to also find people from your area.
Yeah, so out of state ambassadors definitely helped me find a lot more people that were specifically from my area and people that weren't just in the freshman class with me. So I met upperclassmen that were also from the same area, and then we'd talk about things that happened, find out we'd gone to like the same sports game between two rival schools and bond over that. And then the Dordex made me laugh the first year because I lived in Founders. I remember walking down the hall just immediately to my right, in the 3 rooms to my right, all of them had at least one person from Colorado in it. And so I'd be like, hi, like you're from Colorado. What high school did you go to? And then we'd sit and talk about it. And sometimes I wouldn't like their high school or they wouldn't like mine. And we'd joke about being rivals, how we were on the same team now. And it was fun. It was always interesting.
Yeah, I think those door decks are definitely something that's underrated at USD. I know people will always like to make fun of them, but definitely something that's underrated because it helps you figure out where, who might be from your area. So definitely something good. So I know right before this we talked about kind of the first year or like Ole weekend and how it feels like for moving in. And I don't know if you guys know this, but usually move-in day is the hottest day of the year in San Diego, which is always so fun, especially when you're moving in. So saying that, can you talk about your move-in weekend? I know we talked about it a little bit, but let's just talk about it a little more. And if there were any expectations you had before arriving during move-in weekend and then during move-in weekend. Daniela, you could start.
My moving went relatively smoothly. However, I had the advantage of moving in before all of my roommates because I did pre-orientation. So, but it was more fun for me when they all got there because I got to help them and then I could chat with them and their families as we moved in. Um, One thing that surprised me was that we have a Bath and Body Works tent, or not Bath and Body Works, Bed Bath and Beyond. I always get those switched up. We have a tent on campus and during move-in weekend, and the number of fans that I saw people buying because it was just hot in the dorms. Everyone's cracking windows, especially if you have to lug things up a staircase. Luckily, most of the dorms have elevators. Don't worry about that. That took me off guard because I didn't expect that many people to have forgotten a fan. But it was, I think move-in weekend overall all went well for me. But I was also already moved in by the time move-in weekend came. So maybe I have a skewed bias.
Yeah, I have a little bit maybe different of an experience just because I moved in during move-in weekend. However, like I'm from Tucson, Arizona. I have had 120-degree summers. I know heat, but I know dry heat. So move-in weekend in San Diego is like humid, sticky heat, and I was not prepared for that. Um, it was really hot. Um, but at the same time, it was actually like first of all, very overstimulating. My mind was moving at like a million miles an hour, which it probably didn't have to, but that's me. But they actually have a lot of essays and RAs and a bunch of student leaders that are just like running around with bins, like grabbing people, grabbing their stuff, and helping you move it all. So you really don't have to carry like everything, which is amazing because that would have taken me years. So moving weekend outside of that with all the help that I got was pretty smooth. It wasn't a super difficult process, and my roommates and I like met right off the bat. And while we wanted to get to chatting right away, we had to get all of our stuff out and all of our fans turned on, like Daniela said. But yeah, I'd say moving weekend was pretty smooth. Just if I could use one word, it would probably be overstimulating, but also exciting.
Yeah, I think overstimulating is a good word. There's a lot to take in and there's a lot to do during move-in weekend. So it's a lot for one day to say the least, let alone a whole weekend. So now that you've attended USD and you've been there for a year and you're living there sometimes, how do you feel about your initial assumptions about USD and San Diego in general? And is there anything that's changed, or do you think your initial assumptions were correct? Emily, you can start this one.
Honestly, I tried to come in with not too many assumptions just because I think I could kill myself with overthinking in that way. However, everything that I did think was kind of just, like I said, further validated and cemented. As far as the city itself, I knew that I was going to love San Diego, and I knew that I had a lot in front of me as far as exploring all of San Diego, which I still haven't gotten to completely do, and I don't think I ever will, but I'm on my way. um, but as far as specifically with USD, I think as far as academically, it exceeded my expectations as far as how professors are willing to go above and beyond for their students. Like, just to give an example, there are several professors that I've reached out to who are outside my major, outside of my minors, that I just ran into, and I noticed their research was really interesting, not necessarily an area that I would pursue. I just found it interesting. I reached out to them. I was like, hey, this is post-COVID. Like, can we schedule a Zoom meeting and can I just pick your brain about this? Because I mean, like some professor was studying death, dying, and social justice. I was like, can we just talk about this? Because I don't think I'll be able to take your class. And she was willing to do that, which I think just goes to show how professors are willing to, they're super energized about their work and they're willing to share that with any USD student, whether it's their actual student or just someone at USD. So yeah, I think that exceeded my expectations, how much professors are willing to help students. And then socially, I actually am pleasantly surprised with how quickly I was able to find my niche on campus. Specifically with clubs and organizations, I didn't realize that I would find one where that would become family so quickly. Shout out Fuso. But yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised in every aspect. I'll say that.
For me, moving down to San Diego was a relatively new experience, especially since being from Colorado, which is like a 16-hour drive. I knew that going home wasn't really going to be a huge option for me because I couldn't just drive home. I had to fly or plan a road trip. So when it came down to it, though, USD exceeded all my expectations for what I wanted out of college and what I thought I needed. especially coming in with academics, I love the study culture on campus because not only is everyone really laid back and you see people just hanging out in the study areas like Coachali's Plaza, people just play frisbee out there, or like OSA had a volleyball tournament there. That was really fun. But you also see people studying in like so many of the beautiful study spots we have on campus, especially with the new learning commons. So there's that combination of like, oh, you can have fun, you can be laid back and relaxed, but also like do focus on your schoolwork, exceed where you want to. And especially with the small class sizes, as Emily mentioned, you really get to know your professors, which was something that I really enjoyed because I thought I would miss it from high school. Having those close bonds with the people who teach you and being able to go to them not only for schoolwork, but also just talk about things. I had one history professor last year that I just went to her office hours to see how she was. If I had time, I'd just stop in and be like, hey, how are you? And we'd end up talking for 2 hours about whatever came up, which was really amazing. So in that sense, it really exceeded my expectations. As Emily said, like academically, amazing. Socially, I was surprised how many things I fell into so quickly. So I automatically joined OSA and Olay Ambassadors because I realized that I loved USD and just wanted to tell other people about it. And then this year I decided I wanted to be more branched out with the San Diego community. So I joined Toreros Fighting Homelessness, which is an amazing club. Highly recommend you look into. And it made me realize just how much like there is to San Diego that I still have left to experience, even 2 years into school. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that both sounds so great. So now we're just going to get into the more favorite parts of San Diego and USD kind of questions. So on that, I think those are self-explanatory, but what is your favorite part of San Diego so far? Daniela, you could start with this one.
My favorite part of San Diego so far as a location is probably Sunset Cliffs because it's always beautiful. It's always a very fun place to go with your friends. And then my favorite thing about just generally living in San Diego is the access to the amount of food you have because there's so many things you can go to. There's Old Town, which has absolutely amazing Mexican food. There's Convoy Street, where you can get Korean barbecue. There's noodle houses. Definitely a huge plus being from a landlocked state is also like the sushi and how cheap it is. Um, so that's probably my favorite part about living in San Diego, and also the beach. The beach is a nice change for the mountains.
I'm totally cheating on this question because I cannot pick. But I definitely say, first of all, as far as a location, I agree with Daniela. Sunset Cliffs, it's like one of the most picturesque and like most beautiful places in San Diego. But also at the same time, pretty much anywhere where you could see the sunset is just like mwah, so beautiful. But then also I'm gonna say secondary favorite place in San Diego is Old Town because oh my gosh, the food is so good. I can't even put it into words. It's just amazing. Some of the best Mexican food I've ever had in my life. I could eat there forever. Also every day of the week for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But as far as my favorite thing to do in San Diego, I will forever say this. I love to tell people that in order to explore San Diego, I like to eat my way through San Diego, and that means finding the best foodie spots because there's literally infinite amounts of them. I sound so unhealthy right now, but I swear it's the best, some of the best food that you'll eat ever. And just exploring the cool areas around it. I just did that last night in Ocean Beach. Like, you'll forever be exploring San Diego if you just go find the good food spots and just kind of walk around. That's one of my favorite parts about being in this city too, is the food spots and the just exploring because it never ends.
Yeah, I definitely have to say food. The food here is definitely the best part of San Diego. Of course, the locations are cool, the beaches are super dope, and they're super close to USD. But the food is top of the line, just my favorite thing by far, by far. So now that we've heard your favorite parts about San Diego, what's your favorite part or memory of USD? Emily, you can start this one.
I'd say favorite part of USD. Oh, that's such a tough question, but I'm gonna have to go basic. I think like probably 80% of USD students would say this. I'm gonna have to say Garden of the Sea, which is in the back of the KIPJ, and it's just this really pretty. It has these like super calm and serene water fountains and a bunch of plants and everything, and it overlooks like the entire city, and sunsets there are just absolutely amazing. Me and Danielle actually went there the other night and just had like a little ukulele session, and it was just really calm and serene and everything like that. So yeah, I'd say Garden of the Sea is the most relaxing, pretty calm, every word under the sun place I really like at USD.
So my favorite spot is actually not the Garden of the Sea. I love it. It's very peaceful and pretty, and but the landscaping, like everywhere else, is beautiful. So that's but my favorite is probably the area around Bert's Cafe. First of all, Bert's, when it's open, the food smacks. It's so good. It's probably my favorite place to eat on campus, just because I mean the acai bowls alone on at Bert's are delicious. But then the area around it, the outdoor eating area, overlooks the same way as the Garden of the Sea. And so it's very pretty, very calming, good place to get some sun when you need to. And it was very close to me freshman year, which was really nice.
Yeah, I can't wait for that to open up again because that, like what you just described, just sounds so dope. Like I want to do that again. Sweet. So now we're down to our last question here, and I'm gonna let whoever wants to go first take this one. But what is your guys' best advice, and it could be multiple parts, for students coming from out of state?
It looks like Danielle is thinking, so I'll start us off with this one. I'd say something that I wish I heard when I was kind of going through this process again was I would have liked to hear something that kind of would have taken some of the weight off of the situation, because I think a lot of high school seniors are like, this is do or die, like this is gonna make or break my entire life. Which looking back on it was totally what I was thinking. But it's just not reality and it's not true. So I think what's important to keep in mind is whatever school that you choose, whether it's in state or out of state, whatever your situation is, um, that's just going to serve as a launching point for you to go and live the life that you imagine for yourself right now. And it's all about the tools that the whatever the school has or whatever path that you're taking. What tools do they have for you to go and make that happen? For me, it was USD was the perfect launching point because USD had the small class sizes, they had the change making, they had the Alcala Bazaar and the amazing clubs and orgs that made my home away from home. Um, but that those things are going to set you up for success wherever you go. And then at the same time, you know, it's those little steps out of your comfort zone. Again, those are what are going to set you up for success. It's saying hi to strangers, knocking on people's doors, COVID willing, signing up for things that are outside of your comfort zone. And then lastly, I'd just like to emphasize that this decision is yours. This decision, while it may seem like you're making it for a whole list of people, it is yours and it is your life at the end of the day. So you're gonna go and create your own journey. And once you do, I'm so excited for you because it is some of the best years ever and some of the most rewarding years ever too.
First off the bat, completely agree with Emily. Just absolutely amazing advice. I would like to add though, for me, I was incredibly indecisive when I was picking my schools. I think I applied to like 10 different schools, and when acceptances come in, they didn't exactly get narrowed down, which is in itself stressful because all of a sudden I had all these decisions to make, whether I wanted to be in state, whether I wanted to be out of state. If I was out of state, what state did I want to go to? And when it came down to it, um, I kind of just decided that USD was going to be what was best for me, not only because the major I knew I wanted to pursue, which don't worry about picking majors. That's not a huge concern your first year. USD doesn't actually make you announce until your second semester sophomore year. But just look at the things that you know you want to pursue going forward, whether you want to be more involved in the world around you, whether you want to be active with change making. USD was a great option when it came to that for me, but you want to make the decision that you know will make you happy, even if it's the harder one or even if it's the easiest one. Don't be scared of something just because it's easy, and don't be scared of something just because it looks difficult or scary. Like, this is the time in your life where you want to pursue the things that scare you, but you also want to find the place that you can call home away from home or even become your home. So yeah, that's my piece of advice: is don't get too stressed. It'll all work out, and college is fun either way.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Those were great pieces of advice. Definitely take those into consideration. And with that, we reached the end of our panel. Thank you again to our panelists for being amazing. You guys did great. and hopefully see you all soon.